Imagine that. Happened again. I wonder why that happens. Alright, Matt. Let's set back up here. Where even is the SATA cable at this point? Back. Okay, sweet. Well, I'll show you those ports. Let me just identify where the SATA cable. Oh, here she is. Here she is. Okay, that's it. See, I got the SATA cable plugged into this now. Okay, so I don't need to. Okay, so we got that SATA cable. Well, no, this looks like it plugs directly into the motherboard. See? Here, I'll show you the motherboard. This is the. These are the connectors right here that you're talking about, and that SATA, that port, that's not going to go into that. But I have it connected to this, see? Connected perfectly to this. And then, I'm guessing I just plug this into, it's gotta say SATA somewhere, right? I see it right there. Right back there. I gotta put the phone back up. It's not wide, it's one of the shorter ones. Ugh. So many wires. Go ahead and unplug this so I can actually get to it. There's two. There's peripherals and SATA. So I just plug it into both, I'm guessing? Okay. I already had one plug into the SATA, but whatever. The fuck is a peripheral? Do I have to worry about a peripheral? So this is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see it. It's those two short guys. You see it says, oh, you can't see it. It says peripheral and SATA. But I have that plugged in. The motherboard. Anything else? Still gotta figure out where the fuck that's gonna go. Okay. Here's the motherboard. A lump of cables. Is everything looking all right? Dude, my cable management is horrendous. Yeah, I mean, it looks. I think it looks good too, but the cable management. Like, I actually want to unplug everything and completely restart. Like, I actually take the motherboard apart as well. Take it out of the case, unscrew everything. I'm completely joking. I would sooner smash my nuts with the sledgehammer before I did that. Which is not out of the question yet. Look at all these fucking cords. I hope these cords don't get caught up in the fans. Horrible. So what's the next step? Do I put the graphics card in and fire this puppy up? I mean, hope everything fires up. I was getting a little confidence there. Yeah, so there's, like I showed earlier, Danny, right here. There's both those cables right there. This one and this one, they're both plugged into the SATA cable. Like the spot that says peripheral and SATA, they're both plugged in the spot that says SATA. So SATA cable isn't hooked up to the motherboard. I think the SATA came from this. Well, where's the SATA cable come from? SATA cable's from the radiator. So is that what goes into this top right here, this top part? Is that where that goes? Think so? Okay, well let me find the cable for that. No fucking clue where that goes to. The cable that plugs. So if it plugs into this, should it have came with the radiator, or do you think it came with the power source? Okay. I don't know, in the box it doesn't have anything plugged up to the top of it. See? There's nothing plugged in on the top. Like it has nothing plugged in at all. Because I'm not sure where else I would plug it into, because look. So this one that's plugged into the SATA port, it is hooked up to all of this, which goes to this, which is controlling the fans. So I have one, so this is plugged up to the SATA, and then this SATA cable, it's hooked up directly to the case, and it goes into the case right here. So I don't know. And then the other splice right here it's peripherals. It says SATA and peripherals. So I am a little lost on what I'm supposed to plug it into. Oh, I'm the one that fits it. He needs to plug into it. Yeah, I'm looking at these wires, and they all look like they go into the. They all look like this. You can see that. I mean, and that plug is not going into that. Huh. I have the box. I've kept everything. This is all the stuff that came out of the power source, and there's nothing in the cooler box. I'm gonna try all of them. Let's watch this.
The all-new Kraken series features the most advanced controls ever to be included in all-in-one liquid cooler. The Kraken series features a new pump that is both quieter and capable of displacing more liquid than previous generations. With reinforced extended tubing, fine nylon sleeves are added to strengthen the rubber tubing. As an added protective layer that shields your Kraken cooler tubes from potential damage during use. The Kraken series includes numerous customizable presets and reactive modes to respond to changes in system conditions. To install a Kraken series, move all 4 sliders on the backplate to the correct position depending on the motherboard. Install the backplate to the rear of the motherboard. Install the 4 standoffs to the front of the motherboard. Place the pump with a retention bracket onto the CPU. Connect the fans to the radiator. Mount the radiator to the case. Connect the power pump cable to the pump. Connect the first fan connector on the power cable with 4 pins. Connect the power pump cable to the CPU power pump.
Whoa.
Connect the SATA power cable to the pump. Mount the radiator to the case. Connect the power pump cable to the pump.
Mine looks different than that. Maybe it's one of these. Maybe it is one of these. These are so small though, like no way these are them. Yeah, not a chance. This is crazy. I have every single plug right here. This is horseshit.
Mount the radiator to the case.
Like this is that power cable is completely different than mine. Yeah, that's my cooler, but that power plug-in that he has is. Look at that. That one looks completely different than mine. That one looks like a power cable cord, and it has that kind of port next to it. Mine has nothing around it except for that one. And nothing else around it. So I don't know. I don't know what to do. Maybe I plugged in the wrong one. I don't know where else I would have plugged it into.
You'll notice there is another cable you haven't plugged in yet. Later. This isn't a cable map. To locate this bundle of cables, and what we're going to do here is pass that through to the back side of your case for easy cable. A screwdriver, but just fuck stuff. You won't have any problems. Next up, you'll want to look, but just don't use the then onto the bottom. The additional all facing up is the correct orientation. So this is AM4 and this one is for AM5. Because we're going to AM5 board, we'll have the AM5 side facing up. Locate 4 of these standoffs. The side with the larger thread is the thread that goes into the motherboard. So you want to put those through the standoffs. Then you'll want to finger tighten those into your motherboard. There is no tool to fasten these, so just finger tighten them as much as you can. Don't over tighten them, it'll make it hard to remove later if you need to remove. Now, this is a common installation step as well. The same thing here, we're showing the Intel board, but this is the same for AM4 and AM5. Put the radiator in your desired location. You'll then want to locate 8 of these mounting screws, and then we're going to fasten up all of the fans, putting the fan screw through the fan, aligning your radiator with the cutouts and holes on your case.
I might have found it. Probably
As
not
mentioned in many other installation guides, or if you're new here, welcome! You'll want to finger tighten all of these screws up one by one, and I recommend doing 2 screws at a time, just so the
I highly doubt this is the right
itself
one.
correctly. And once you get all those in and aligned, get yourself some more screws
Nope, it's
and a
not it.
screwdriver, and whiz them all up so we can be ready to move on to mounting the cooler on top of the CPU IHS itself. Once we're done with that, grab the additional cables, both the RGB and the PWM power bolts used for all mounting this SFP. Okay, let's start off with the common installation steps between all types of installation. This is the cable here that is required to power the cooler. What you want to do is locate this end of the cable and you want to plug it into the port on this side. This will only with the cable, and you want to plug it into the port on this side. This will only plug in one way, so it's very, very difficult to mess this up. And when you push it in, it should clip into place and you shouldn't be able to
Wait a minute.
plug out. Here's a little bit of a different look just so you can see how this is.
Wait a minute.
Okay, let's start off with Intel installation. This is the mounting gear that is required for all Intel installations, including 11.5X, LGA 1200 and LGA 1700. We're doing 1700 in this video. What I recommend is putting the backplate on a flat surface if the motherboard's out of your case, and lowering the motherboard onto the backplate just to make it easier to align. You'll then want to locate 4 of these. These are the LGA 1700 bolts. You can usually tell the difference with LGA 1700 bolts because they've got that collar around the center of them. Now, you'll want to finger tighten these in. It doesn't matter which order you do them in for the backplate, but just fasten them all into place. Finger tighten them, don't over tighten them because they'll be impossible to remove later. And once you've done that, we're going to move on to mounting the radiator. Now, this is always up for debate. We're going tubes down for this type of installation, and this is a common step between all installations mounting the radiator at the front. Locate 8 of these screws. These are fan screws, and you'll want to feed the fan screws through the hole on the fan. And for this installation, for this case, this may apply to you as well. You'll want to align the screw with a hole on your case.
I think I got it, Danny.
Through the fan hole, and you can either finger tighten these or use a screwdriver. And the way
it fits.
this is actually just doing 2 of them up to align the radiator correctly, and then grab yourself a screwdriver.
And the bitch has power.
As well.
Woo! It was just dangling back here because my cable management is that of
Screwdriver to do it all. And once you're done with that,
I didn't use my eyes. Look at the fucking.
to the backside.
Look what I'm dealing with back here.
So much easier later when you're trying to manage everything.
A rat, fucking rat's nest. That's damn right.
Take 4 of these thumb nuts. You can use a screwdriver to put these in, or finger tighten them. I recommend using a screwdriver. Pull off the cold plate cover for that pre-applied thermal paste. You'll then want to lower the cooler on.
Alright, Danny, what's next? That's already plugged in.
Making sure that all of those standoffs that we installed in the previous step are lined up with the holes that are on the mounting bracket itself. You can then finger tighten a single screw into hold.
It's my fault for not
You'll want
planning
to mount
better.
these up diagonally so the mounting pressure is even across the whole top of the IHS. Next up, you want to locate this bundle of cables. We're actually going to pass this through to the back of the system to make it a lot easier to cable manage when we do all the RGB and USB wiring on the backside. You'll notice there's a single cable now that's not plugged in. This is to power the pump. You'll then want to locate the header on your motherboard. Something
What's the
labeled,
GPU?
like CPU fan or CPU op. On this occasion, we're going to plug it into CPU fan. Some boards are picky with this, so we're going to use CPU fan. And then just plug that in. It'll only plug in one way. And once you've got that plugged in, we should be good to go. Now we're going to move on to AMD installation steps. For AM4 and AM5, we plug that board, something like C6 to
CPU fan. I gotta plug in the CPU fan.
power the pump. You'll then want to locate a header on your motherboard, something labeled something like CPU fan or CPU op. On this occasion, we're going to plug it into CPU fan. Some boards are picky with this, so we're going to use CPU fan. Into CPU fan. some boards are picky with this, so we're going to use CPU fan, and then just plug that in. It'll only plug in one way, and once you've got that plugged in, we should be good to go. Now we're going to move on to AMD installation steps. For AM4 and AM5 installation, this is the back pressure step. Now here's what have you want to load all routes and locate to the standoffs that we installed onto the motherboard in the previous step. You'll want to get one of them, just finger tighten it up to begin with. Do every single corner, just like so. And once you've got at least two in, you'll want to then what we're going to do here is pass that through to the back side of your case for easy cable management at a later date. This isn't a cable management guide, this is just to help you guys get a bit of an understanding of where your cables should go. You'll notice there is another cable you haven't plugged in yet. What we're going to do is locate a header on your motherboard, something like CPU fan or CPU op or pump fan or whatnot. I recommend CPU fan for some motherboards because they can be quite picky. We're going to do CPU fan for this motherboard in particular. Let's move on to wiring. This is common across all platforms and all installations. Locate this USB 2.0 splitting cable. This will plug in.
That picture's so blurry. Danny. I don't know what that means. What is this monkey? Okay.
Top row. The bottom row usually goes HDD LED plus line power LED connector. Of these connections, you might note that 3 have plus and minus, or polarity. That is, it matters in which orientation you have them. The connector will usually have a positive and negative indicator silk screened onto it, or even be separated into individual wires, but if not, they should be color-coded, and the white or black wire is usually the negative. For LEDs, the polarity needs to be correct or your lights won't function properly. The good news is that if you put them in wrong, it won't hurt anything, just flip them around. The PC speaker header follows the same black equals negative wire convention, but these are becoming so rare that you may never see one while building a computer for yourself. Its primary role these days is to provide feedback during boot. Beep codes can be useful for troubleshooting, but have largely been replaced by diagnostic LEDs. It has other uses, but it's mostly just a relic of a bygone era. 2 of the front panel connections absolutely do not matter which orientation they go in, and that's the power switch and reset switch, because unlike devices like LEDs or speakers that need to draw power, these are simple switches that close a circuit. Still, it's neatest to make sure that they line up with the other cables if present.
Once you've wired up the front panel, gently pull the slack back through the rear pin. It's a good idea to also wire up USB and front panel audio now if present. Front panel audio may have 2 connectors, AC97 and HD audio, or Azalea. Both are keyed the same way. That is, they have a blind dip pin on the connector that allows them to go in only one way. But how they work is different. The TLDR is that AC97 is a mostly dumb connection that doesn't provide any feedback as to what's plugged in. And HD audio, or Azalea, allows for things like jack sensing and reassignment. Most computers since the mid-2000s will have support for HD audio, so use that unless your computer is really old. The header for this is usually on the lower left corner of the motherboard. but if you don't see it there, check your manual to locate it. Like your front panel wires from before, make sure they're completely free of obstructions, then use the cable management guides now if you have them to reduce the need for rewiring later. Find a hole close to the header, then go through it. For an ATX motherboard, you can usually get away with pulling it through this little channel here, even if your power supply will go right up against it. And that will give you a very clean look. A common mistake when plugging these in is to only plug in one row. Make sure there are no pins hanging out directly above or below your connector when you plug it in. It can only go in one way, yes, but only if all the rows are aligned first. When it's
I do not have CPU power, I don't think. Oh wait, yes I did. I'm pretty sure I did. No. CPU. Now where does the CPU get plugged into in the front? Oh, I see it. No, this one did. Where's CPU?
USB is USB 3.2. It was 4 pins, with a 5th pin on only one row to make sure you don't plug it in the wrong way around. Usually, but not always, there's a plastic shield around these on the motherboard to make sure it lines up exactly when it's plugged in, but it's usually pretty easy. And they can share this design with both serial and FireWire. Make absolutely certain you do not plug a USB into anything that's called FireWire, FW, or 1394. This uses a much higher voltage and will destroy USB devices plugged into it. Usually the right headers will be labeled with USB, sometimes followed by a port number and the headers that correspond to it. But if it doesn't say or you aren't sure, consult your motherboard's manual. Follow the same procedure as front panel audio for these cables. Make sure they're free from obstruction, use the cable management guides, and find a hole close to the header for it to go through. Remember, it can only go on one way, so don't force it and mash up the pins. Pull the slack through for the cable management later and repeat as necessary.
But what about USB 3 and 3.2? These are much larger, stiffer cables, and usually you'll find their headers on the right edge of the motherboard or at the bottom edge. They're quite wide and sometimes difficult to get through cable management channels, so if you haven't been paying attention to cable management, pay attention now, because these are the worst. As before, find a hole near the USB 3 header on the motherboard and line it up, but don't connect it just yet. Listen first. USB 3 connectors are very fussy, and it's easy, even for a professional builder, to mash the pins due to the way that it's installed. The connector easily contacts the pins before it is fully aligned, and the force required to plug it in is much higher than the other connectors we've seen so far. That basically means that you won't know if it's aligned, and you won't know if you've mashed anything by feel alone. If you do manage to bend a pin, chances are it won't unbend without snapping. So very carefully line it up, and don't apply pressure until you are reasonably sure that the pins are aligned. If all goes well, it should snap or click into place, and you can breathe a sigh of relief. Unlike the other cables, this one is very stiff, so cable management should be done with a very gentle touch. If you accidentally pull it out, you'll probably end up bending all the pins in the header at the same time, and at that point, you can just say, goodbye front USB 3. USB 3.2 is a lot easier, but has the annoying quality of being both